And I will call the Building and Zoning Committee meeting to order. We have a few items on our agenda this evening, starting off with the agenda items for the Zoning Hearing Board for April 14th, 2025. Item 1A, Appeal number 25-3785, Elkins Park LLC for Harrison Avenue. There's a tax ID number. Mr. Sekawongu, you still with us? All right. Yes, there you are.
There you go,
Mr. Sekawongu, do you would you please just give us a brief summary?
Yes, this is an application. The applicant is actually online. It's an application to take a vacant lot that has, it's not a vacant lot, but it's a lot that has garages in the rear, and the property owner would like to construct a 3-story duplex with one dwelling unit occupying the first and second floors, with an in-law suite on the first floor with separate cooking facilities, and a second dwelling occupying the third floor. There is an increase in impervious surface as it relates to this application of, I think it would be up to 69.93 in place of the required 50%. There's also a size issue in terms of lot size. Generally, the lot size is supposed to be a minimum of 7,500 square feet. This lot is about 6,800 square feet. And also the duplex proposed would have a maximum of 6 bedrooms where 3 bedrooms are allowed. Again, there's also the issue of a definition of family specific to, the dwelling units having 2 cooking facilities. The applicant is online. There was a recommendation from the Planning Commission. A lot of the neighbors showed up and, expressed some concerns about this proposal. And the Planning Commission made a recommendation to deny this application. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Bazaski so he can share what he's proposing as part of the application.
Yeah, Mr. Bazaski, you have a couple minutes. You want to tell us what you're proposing?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. I'll make it very brief. The original application was appealed for 4 requests. One, we actually had a plan to put a 3-story duplex serving the first floor for in-law suite, and also the impervious and have more bedrooms than what the zoning is. The zoning is currently R3, and it's allowed a duplex with up to 3 bedroom per unit. We decided after we met with the committee, we felt the pushback, and we decided to reduce the application and appeal only 2 decisions that were made. We actually retracted the option for the in-law suite and the 2 kitchens and the multiple bedrooms. So we're actually going within the zoning code. The only appeal we have right now at the moment, it's for the impervious space, which was allowed 50%. We asked for 51.87, 1.87% larger than what we allowed. And the second problem, actually, I think it's the bigger problem, although it's minimized. It's from 7,500 square foot minimum required for R3 to build a duplex. Our property, unfortunately, it's only 6,900, less than 10% smaller than what it is. So the appeal, to summarize, the appeal from the 4 different appeals, we're actually appealing only 2 decisions. We want to be within the required R3 zoning code. And I can share the revised plan if it's possible, but that's it.
So a question for Mr. Diazio, because it sounds like this is a significant change from the original application procedurally, does this have to go through an initial review again, or what would your recommendation be in terms of going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think my recommendation would be, at this point, since the scope of the relief has changed, I think that there should be a resubmission, a re-review by planning and zoning, planning and zoning can determine what zoning relief might be necessary, and then the application could go back through the committee process. So it would go back to the planning commission. They would see the revised proposal. They could make a new recommendation. And then certainly this committee would see the application again. Mr. Barzeski, that would require you to submit a revised plan and go through that process again. So you would need to, have an agreement to not move forward with the zoning hearing on April 14th and to resubmit your application.
May I reply?
Sure.
Okay. The original appeal was for 4 sections. I'm still on the 2 same appeal. I understand that basically I'm asking the board not to consider the other 2 appeals. I'm amending the current appeal to make it easier and make it simpler while I'm removing 2 of the 4 sections. We started this process in November, where the fees for each appeal was $1,100. For some reason, we scheduled a meeting with the township, and it couldn't be done until January, where the fees already went to $1,800. We're already 3 months or 4 months, or actually more like 6 months in the process. Then we sent it, and we felt the pushback, so we made the change. Now, the request to reappeal, it will cost us another $1,800, and it's another month or 2 months. I understand that you're trying to work by the procedures, but again, I'm asking to reconsider, because I'm not asking new requests. I'm asking on the same existing appeals, ignore the other 2 requests, and just let's consider the 2 requests that I have, because everything else is within the zoning code.
So, Mr. Barzeski, the difficulty that I would have, and speaking for myself as on this committee, is it's a little hard to sort of appreciate what it is you're trying to do when we're looking at an old plan, and it's sort of hard to spring a new plan on us, on this meeting and have us review it and give it the consideration that it deserves, and have staff and the planning commission, who we rely on as a committee to give us recommendations. Sometimes we take, oftentimes we take, sometimes we don't, but we rely on that feedback and that input in making our determinations. And I think in order to give yourself the fairest opportunity for an outcome that you may be looking for, it would behoove you to go through that process again. Certainly the concern, one of the concerns when you had multiple units beyond what's allowed is this concept of, whether it's Airbnb or dormitory style housing and that sort of thing. And that is a big concern in this township. And if you, even with a regular duplex, I think you have those concerns that I think are on everyone's mind. And so I do think it would behoove you to sort of reconsider presenting that new revised plan and giving the process an opportunity to vet that new plan. But ultimately, it'll be your decision. But before you answer, let me turn it over to my colleague, Commissioner Rappaport, who I think has some comments.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think you explained a lot of the problems that we would have evaluating it. If I needed to evaluate it tonight, I still see triplex, not a duplex. And so nothing has really been reduced, except that told you, you're telling us tonight that we'll take out our kitchen, but the size still permits 6 bedrooms and a three the accommodations for 3 units rather than just 2. So there's a lot there that I think is problematic without giving us, all the changes that make that not be the problem. And the other thing, I appreciate that when you first tried, the fees may have changed mid-project. And I don't know if that needs us to take another look at it or not, but you know, that's also another possibility that there could be maybe some compromise. I don't know. But I still think it is pushing on too many things without really resolving them with good information. So thank you.
Commissioner Zieggenfeld, I believe this is in your ward.
It is in my ward. So I have a few questions for Mr. Borzuski. Mr. Borzuski, was it Mr. Zoltan Hara or somebody who called me about this property?
No, I believe that's a
Oh, is
different.
that a different
That's a-
property? Okay,
That's a
okay.
different property.
But okay, I'm sorry. I'll retract that. My only question is that the consideration or some of the discussion, which included the use of that as Airbnb, the other suggestion in the resubmission would be to assert that that would never be one of the ways that units would be rented out. I would like that to be stated. I think that would be reassuring to the neighbors, and it would also take what could be a concerning element off the table. So I just wanted to make sure that was one of the things that was put into any revision, if in fact the applicant is going to revise his submission. Thank you.
I have no problem with that. There is some myth that's going on, and I'm not gonna currently respond, but I have no problem to commit to your request. Can we at least discuss, just maybe I'm reaching too high, but there is a fundamental question here. I have 6,900 square feet property. In R3 zoning, minimum requires 7,500. Can we discuss just that? Not anything else? Is that possible?
I think it's difficult to, I see Mr. Sekwungu's hand up, but from my point of view, I think it's difficult to sort of parse out the issues separately when you know, we're buying the whole package, right? So the answer is I don't think it's beneficial to you or to this committee to
But that's the whole package. That's all I'm asking. That's the only appeal I have. I have a 6,900 square foot property. The minimum requires 7,500. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for anything else. There is no other.
Mr. Borzuski, I can answer that for you. So under the zoning code, right, that would be problematic. That's not permitted. And so what you would be doing is you'd be going to the zoning hearing board and you'd be asking them to essentially grant you an exception to that requirement. But part of what you're going to have to do is demonstrate why there's a unique hardship that's related to your property. And so you have a planning commission recommendation against you. And it, you know, I'm just reading the room a little bit here. It sounds like there's a number of concerns. So you may have a board of commissioners recommendation against you. Those are going to be two critical factors that the zoning hearing board is going to consider. But the biggest issue here is you're going to have to articulate what your hardship is and why you could not develop your property within the restrictions of the zoning code. And so I don't think that's a question for the board to ask. I think that's a case you need to make to the zoning hearing board, and the zoning hearing board will make a decision as to whether or not you've met that burden. It will be up to you what posture you want to bring your case to the zoning hearing board. And I would just encourage you to think about whether having a negative recommendation from the planning commission and perhaps a negative recommendation from the board of commissioners is the way in which you want to go into that hearing. So it may make sense, you know, for you simply to consider whether there's further modifications to your plan that could bring your proposed development closer into line with what the zoning code currently permits.
Okay, I understand. I will withdraw, I'll reappeal, and we'll go I'll resubmit and we'll go from there. I hear the room.
Thank you, sir. Henry, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I'm sorry about that. I was just, I didn't know whether this was moving forward or not. I just wanted to, you know, get some feedback too on the impervious surface. Again, you know, we have some issues in this township specific to stormwater. And given that this would be an increase in impervious surface, I just wanted to get some commentary on that. And also, you know, again, we have a number of neighbors that took time out to be a part of this discussion. And I just want to make sure that, you know, if need be, they had an opportunity. But since he's withdrawing, I'm not sure if it's even relevant. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Mr. Barzeski, you are withdrawing and are going to resubmit, correct?
Correct. And
Okay.
impervious surface will be less than 50%, Mr. Sakawango.
Thank you for that. Okay, and I think with that, we will move on to item 1B, which is, thank you all, Mr. Barzeski, for your participation tonight. I'm sure we'll see you again shortly. Appeal, I'm sorry, zoning hearing board agenda appeal number 25-3786, Target Corporation for 2450 Shoppers Lane. Mr. Sekuwangu.
Yes, actually, I'll just go ahead and turn this over to Miss Farrell. This is regarding the Target, which she's representing, and she'll be able to highlight what she's proposing. There was a couple of the issues brought up by the Planning Commission where it seemed like they were resolvable, and the recommendation was for approval to the zoning hearing board.
Well, good evening, Miss Farrell. If in your short presentation, you would tell us what those issues that were raised at the Planning Commission and how they are resolvable, if you don't mind.
I promise to do it as quickly as possible, if that helps.
Thank you.
I'm going to share my screen quickly just so you can all see what we're dealing with here, and I'll walk you through it really quickly. Give me one sec. That's always the part that takes the longest. Hold on one second here. So as Henry said, this is the Target on Shoppers Lane. You will remember, I think, that if we were before you a few months ago in connection with some signage relief associated with this site, Target is undertaking a full elevation refresh, including signage improvements, as well as some improvements in the parking lot related to expansion of the drive-through, or excuse me, drive-up program. That relief was all granted by the zoning hearing board a couple of months back. So we're not here really in connection with the signage itself. However, once that relief was granted, the contractors then began their permitting process and submitted their permit plans, which included a site plan. And I'll just scroll through quickly here. This is just to refresh your recollections. This is the elevation improvements that were happening, the drive up improvements that go along with that. Again, the expansion of the drive up. In connection with the construction itself, we need a laydown area. This is an interior and exterior renovation. And the contractors, when they submitted the plan set for the project, included the laydown area, which, as you can see, is exterior to the building. It's in the parking lot. And it includes about 35 roughly essentially shipping containers that sit in the parking lot to hold materials and supplies while the work is being undertaken. That's a fenced in area. It's completely gated. It's accessible only by the contractors. The zoning officer and Bob Habgood in particular determined that under the code, these are technically non-residential accessory structures, and there's a provision in the code that says that non-residential accessory structures can't be shipping containers. And that's really obviously intended to avoid shipping containers in folks' yards, et cetera, extended periods of time, in commercial establishments, et cetera. There obviously are the more realistic way to handle securing merchandise and materials and equipment during construction of this type. So the determination was that a variance would be required for the temporary use of this area for those containers. That's the sum total of the relief that's needed. You can see from the plan, we took a fair amount of care to make sure that we're cordoning off an area with fencing that will not impede other circulation through the site. Also avoids, there's a fire hydrant at the corner here, so we're inboard of that fire hydrant. Or generally inboard of the planting islands, so that everything's kind of tucked in and a bit away from general traffic. That's really, and you can see sort of in the larger site plan here, just to give you a sense of where this is. Where my cursor is moving right now, that's Shoppers Lane. Where my cursor is here, sort of center of the screen, that's the main entrance of the Target there that everyone's familiar with. So this is, this is really tucked well over into the side of the site, so that it's out of the way, but still accessible for the contractors. Most of this work happens off hours, so it doesn't, there's really not a lot of interaction with customers, pedestrians, others using the center. It really is just, an opportunity for, or a space for the contractors to have a dedicated area. We do still satisfy parking. I think that was one of the questions that the Planning Commission had to do with whether or not the use of this area would reduce parking to such an extent that we would need any kind of parking relief. And in fact, the plan confirms that we do not. You can see on the corner here. Presently there are 448 parking spaces required for this site. There are 553 out there right now. We'll be taking up, I believe it's 89 spaces for that temporary use. That still gives us 468 spaces, which again, north of the 448 that would be required. And I think certainly anybody who's been to this Target as much as I have, can tell you that there's generally not a parking problem on this site. Additionally, as you all know, there's the sort of S-curve parking across Shoppers Lane that is generally accessible to all users of the shopping center. That's not Target specific parking, but if there's one car parked in there a week, that's a lot. So, obviously plenty of overflow should it be needed, but again, not really anticipating that any would be needed. The other question that came up at the Planning Commission that they asked us to take a look at, and we'll work with the contractors to make sure we have clearance. They were just concerned about whether or not this interior 12-foot was going to be sufficient for clearance between those shipping containers. This is a standard layout for Target. Their contractors use these everywhere. They're not accessing the interior of these units with trucks, for example. It's usually hand trucks and smaller equipment. So 12 feet is sufficient. That really is the sum total of the request. So I'm happy to stop sharing for a sec. We certainly can answer any questions you have. As Henry indicated, the Planning Commission was in support of this request. I do have Shelby Manning with Kimley Horn, the engineers of record. She's on this evening as well. If you do have any operation questions, we certainly can answer those.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Farrell. I do have just two quick questions. I appreciated the layout in terms of the location of where the shipping containers are going to be. My only question with respect to that is, are there ingress or egress issues unrelated to Target in that corner where the shipping containers are going to be for perhaps other tenants in the mall?
No, so I'll pull this back up again. We took great care to make sure that we were leaving. If you can see this gray area here,
Yep.
this shaded area, that's an existing fire lane. That's a required fire lane. We're not touching that. We're not encroaching in any way. So we're well clear of that.
And the fence is on the inside of that lane or the outside of that lane?
No, the fence will be on the inside of that lane. You're
Okay,
sort of seeing
good.
that, this is just thick line work, but that fence will end up inboard of that curb line.
I saw the hashtag line below and I thought maybe that was the fence. So thank you. That clarifies it for me. The only other question I have is, do we have a time frame over which we're gonna have this these temporary units?
Yeah, so the generally speaking, the construction for the construction time period, I should say, for kind of this scope of work is about 11 to 12 weeks. There's a little bit of startup at the beginning of that, a little bit of takedown as it closes out, and assuming obviously there's no, massive material issues or weather issues, those types of things. It's usually about 11 to 12 weeks worth of containers physically being on site. And again, a little bit of startup on the front end of that, a little bit of takedown on the end, but we're not looking at much beyond that.
Does your variance request have a time frame attached to it?
It does not, but we wouldn't have any objection to that. We've seen that imposed other locations. We would ask for, again, that like little bit of wiggle
10 and a
room on
half
each
weeks,
end.
that's all you get.
Yeah, we're not done
yeah.
in 10. You're going to come take them down.
Yeah, no, I think a reasonable temporal restriction, I think would make sense, and obviously, giving you the opportunity on the front end and the back end. I think I'd certainly appreciate seeing that. I believe this is in, so thank you for that. I believe this is in Commissioner Lewis's ward, so I'll turn it over to him if he has any questions or comments.
I do. Just two quick questions. One, Ms. Farrell, security. You may have mentioned it. Is there a security issue? How is it going to be protected?
Sure. So the entire enclosure is fenced, and those fences are gated and locked. And then the individual storage containers are also locked. So the contractors will have access during the time periods overnight and in the evenings when they're working within the space, but otherwise they are locked. One of the advantages of locating them at this end of the parking lot is also that because it's adjacent to the front elevation, there are security cameras there as well. So there's also that ability to kind of oversee it when they're not in use.
One last question. What's going to be stored in these containers?
So it's primarily materials and equipment. So it'll be construction related materials for the work that's going on interior to the store. And in some cases, there will be what we would call fixtures. So not merchandise necessarily. They're not necessarily storing, merchandise out there while they're doing the construction, but they might be storing some of the shelving and those types of things that they would take out of the store temporarily while they're working on a portion of the store. But generally speaking, it's construction related.
No hazardous material?
No.
Mr. Chair, I have no further questions and would move, if you will, for no action.
Okay. We have a motion for no action. Is there any comment or question from any other members of the board? All right. All those in favor of, thank you, Ms. Farrell. All those in favor of Commissioner Lewis's motion for no action, say aye.
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 Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thanks. That ends item number 1 on our agenda. Moving on to item number 2, review of the zoning hearing board decision in appeal number 25-3783, the House of Magic Enterprise for 101 South Easton Rd, which shameless plug, I think has its opening night this weekend. That is in Ward 1. Unless there's a comment or question, I'll move for no action. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are you, Mr. Chairman, are you appearing in the first show? I know
They're
you're
going to make me
excited
disappear. On to item number 3, a receipt of the monthly citizen committee meeting minutes. The planning commission met on March 24th, 2025.
But where is my case?
Oh,
Sorry.
excuse me. Ms. Brooks, are you coming up shortly?
Sorry.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
looks like she's
she's
under
B.
3B.
3B. Okay, we'll
We'll
get
be
to you
with you
just a
in a minute.
second. Yeah. The planning commission met on March 24th, 2025. Are there any comments or questions on their meeting minutes? Seeing none, I'll move for acceptance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Ms. Brooks, you'll get your opportunity in just a second for item 3B, Board of Historical and Architectural Review met on March 20th. There's one item for our consideration. We are to consider approval of a certificate of appropriateness for application L25-343 of Ms. Gloria Brooks, owner for the property of 7443 Euston Road in Elkins Park, for the installation of a 4-foot tall wood fence in the front yard and a 6-foot wood privacy fence in the side and rear yard setbacks. Mr. Sekawongo, do you want to give us a quick overview from the township's point of view?
Sure, yes. This was an application that was before the Bahar. The Bahar reviewed it extensively. There was an extensive discussion regarding the proposed vinyl fence versus a wooden fence. The board made a recommendation for approval of a wooden fence. Again, the challenge by the property owner is security and her safety. She's a single individual living in this residence and has been taunted and threatened by trespassers on her property that have when she's approached them. So she felt very safety was a major concern as part of the request for what she was proposing. The board, I believe, the Bahar made a recommendation for a wooden fence, and she's ascertained that may be cost prohibitive for her. And I don't know if she has any comment on that as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Sekawongo. Ms. Brooks, I'll turn it over to you for some comments on your application, but on behalf of the board, you know, I'll state that it's terrible to hear that you've suffered, you know, threats or negative interactions with individuals trespassing on your property. And on behalf of the board and township, I apologize. But but with that, we have to consider the application in a fair manner. So I'll give you a few minutes to tell us about it, and then we can consider it. And Ms. Melton, I understand, may have a comment as well as a member of the Bahar. So Ms. Brooks, you have a couple minutes to tell us about your application.
Thank you. Good evening, member of the commission. Actually, it was not only a threat. I caught delinquents, thieves that were trying to breaking into my house Friday night. So there has been an escalation based on compared with a few weeks ago. My lawyer, Mr. Tan, is here, and Miss Ruan. So I let them to introduce my case.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brooks. Again, we're sorry to hear that, and obviously our, you know, our police chief and staff listen to these meetings, so we'll ask them to keep an eye on the area for you. Thank you for being here, Ms. Ruan.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is
Good
Lisa
evening.
Ron. I am an attorney here on behalf of Ms. Brooks, who is present here at today's meeting. Also, my co-counsel, Mr. Daniel G. Tan, is also present. Thank you so much for having us today. We're here today following Ms. Brooks' meeting March 20th with the Bahar, where Ms. Brooks asked for approval to erect a 4-foot vinyl fence in her front door, in her front yard, and also a 6-foot vinyl fence in her backyard due to ongoing trespassing issues. At the end of the meeting, Bahar did make a recommendation to approve the fence. However, it was on the condition that the fence be made out of wood rather than vinyl, like Ms. Brooks would like. Their concern was that the use of vinyl might diminish the historical integrity of the Mott Historical District community in which Ms. Brooks resides in. However, it is our position that it would not diminish the historical integrity simply because there are many other people in her neighborhood that has also erected fences using vinyl rather than wood. So if I may, Commissioner, is it okay to share my screen to better give an illustration of our position?
Sure.
Thank you so much. I'll do my best to make this as swift as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've just sent a request to share.
Allison, could we have,
Yes.
can you pronounce your last name again? It's
Sure.
Round?
It's pronounced Ron, like R-O-N.
Ron. Ron. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it
So,
working, or do you?
yep. Oh, it's
There you go.
perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. So, as previously mentioned, many members of Ms. Brooks' neighborhood, they have erected fences using vinyl rather than wood. So for example, here we have Ms. Brooks' neighbor, Mr. Hobson. He's the owner of 1713 Willow Avenue. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Here we go. So we have Ms. Brooks' neighbor, Mr. Hobson. He's the owner of 1713 Will Avenue. It's also in the Mott District. He applied for a fence, and on your right, you can see that there is a Bahar agenda where they discuss whether or not to approve his fence in item number 5. So following the meeting, Bahar and the zoning committee actually approved of Mr. Hobson's request to build a white vinyl fence. And Mr. Hobson received a building permit and was issued it by the township. And so he began to install his fence. But this was in 2006, and right now it's 2025, so it's been about 20 years since the vinyl fence was erected. And currently on your right, if you can see, there is a picture of Mr. Hobson's property. Today, it is still the white vinyl fence that he was authorized to install. And this is also the same style of fence that Ms. Brooks is looking to install. On your left where my cursor is, you can see that this is the 4-foot scallop top vinyl fence that Ms. Brooks wants to install in the front of her yard to stop trespassers. And on this side, you can see that it is a 6-foot lattice top vinyl fence that Ms. Brooks would like to install in the back. So other than Mr. Hobson, who's in her neighborhood, there's also other neighbors that have vinyl fences. For example, another neighbor at 327 Sycamore Avenue. Here to the right, as you can see, is a photo of Miss Rose's family. They erected a white vinyl fence in 2017. And this style of fence is also what Miss Brooks would like to have in her front and her backyard. In addition to this neighbor, there are also other neighbors in the same district where Miss Brooks lives. You can see that rather than having wood fences, all around are white vinyl fences all around the block. Aside from these neighbors, there are others in the neighborhood. For example, at 7408 Cedar Lane.
Ms. Ron, I think we get the point.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yep. So
Thank
there are
you.
multiples. So given this fact, Ms. Brooks would like to erect a similar fence that her neighbors have. And on the contrary, there is a neighborhood, there is a property in the neighborhood that has abided by the wood fence. However, the issue with the wood fence is that the fence is yellow. So, and this property is located at the Lamont Community Center, also in the residential neighborhood. However, this was allowed because it was made from wood material. But the issue is that all of the fences in the neighborhood are white and this one is yellow. So it doesn't exactly conform to what the fences in the neighborhood have. So it's our position that Ms. Brooks be allowed to use vinyl, seeing that many other neighbors have used vinyl. In addition to that, there are other concerns aside from aesthetics. The use of vinyl versus wood. In terms of cost, it would cost Ms. Brooks $10,000 to complete the work, whereas for wood, it would cost her almost double, not including the annual maintenance costs. In terms of maintenance, vinyl has minimal maintenance. Vinyl doesn't need painting, staining, or sealing, whereas wood, it requires all of those in order to prevent decay and rotting. And in terms of durability, vinyl is more durable. They're resistant to rotting, decay, and impervious to insect damage, whereas for wood, it can rot, warp, and crack over time. So based on all these reasons, it is our position, it is our position that Ms. Brooks be allowed to erect a fence made out of vinyl rather than wood.
Thank you, Ms. Ron.
So much.
Thank you. I'm gonna open up to Ms. Melton first before we go to questions from the board, because I assume, Ms. Melton, you have a perspective from the Bahar.
Yes.
Please.
Hi, good evening. Hi, Ms. Brooks. I truly understand your safety issues. I'm actually probably one of your neighbors. This area has had issues with the, I'll call them the riffraff, that come over from that Sunoco, where you live at, over here on the Philadelphia side. And I also live in the Twin, and I have woke up to the next morning of finding pocketbooks in my walkway because somebody got robbed. So I really, truly understand.
Ms.
and-
Melton, please keep your
Okay,
comments to
well,
the
I did
Bahar
actually,
perspective.
I know my 3 minutes. You see, I wrote it down.
Very good.
Well, I'm going to have to, now that the attorney addressed some things, Ms. Brooks, and Attorney Ron, you showed us pictures of 1713 Willows. That is actually, yes, it is in Lamont. It is on the opposite side. It is bounded by a stone wall. Where Miss Brooks lives, it was a development built in the 1930s. The vinyl fence that was allowed was not in the front, it was in the side, because where you see presently, where that demolished, that was a house that just was demolished. So there was no vinyl fence in the front. Cedar Lane actually was a property where one of the Bahar members lived, they passed, and that person did come in front of the Bahar. They came because they were caught putting a fence up, which they wasn't supposed to put the fence up. And from what I recall, they weren't given permission to put the fence. The other vinyl fencing, you're right, there's vinyl fencing around, but it's not that they had approval. Now, once you go inside I'll call it the stone wall area, and in that development, and trust and believe, I wasn't there for the last Bahar meeting, but after finding out her concerns, and I'm kind of concerned, I drove through. I can't figure out where the trespassers are walking through to because there's a wooded area in the stone wall.
Yes.
My issue is that there is no houses within that I'll call it development area that has any fencing in front of it. Cedar Lane probably should not have put the fencing in front, but there is more houses without fencing than there are with fencing, especially in front. So I was actually going to ask the board to recommend that this application goes in front of the Historical Commission, because when I looked up our codes, there's a code, and since there's an attorney here, I was reading 295-1807A4, which actually says that the Bahar is supposed to protect the distinctive historical character of the district. So yes, it might be a safety, but yes, in her area, it would change the aesthetics of how everything looks. Now, there is a house, I've been here about 30 some years.
Ms. Melton, I'm
Wait.
going to ask you to wrap. I'm going to ask you
I'm
to
gonna try to
up.
wrap it up because I'm
Yeah,
gonna give a suggestion. I'm gonna give a
Okay.
suggestion.
Let's hear this suggestion.
One, when I moved here, there was a house, I didn't notice it when I moved, that they put a cyclone fence, not a real big one, but a little cyclone fence, 4 feet in between the houses. So if you're coming through the walkway, you can't get to the other part of the walkway to go further down the houses. I don't know if it deterred, but a 4-foot fence is not really going to deter somebody if they really want to, because they'll either open the gate, break the gate, or jump over the gate. Now, according to 295-1807-A8, if I read that correctly, when this application came in front of the township and the Bahar, it also was to notify any historical groups. And I don't think that happened.
I'm sorry, Ms. Melton.
So-
I don't think we're gonna, with due respect, I
Yes.
was looking for a perspective from the Bahar. I think we.
Well, that's my perspective,
maybe
being the
got
vice
it.
chair of the Bahar, and I'm not
That-
saying not to get offense, but
No,
the
no.
other thing is
But
that
hold
it
on,
should
let
be
me
open.
finish what I was saying.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to take a different approach in this application than we do with other applications. So
I don't know, just saying what I saw, okay?
yeah, I understand. So we're going to follow staff's lead on the process.
Okay.
But I think I understand at least your perspective here. Ms. Ron,
Mhm.
it's my understanding that your client is looking for a 6-foot fence in a rear part of the home, and a 4-foot fence in the front part of the home.
Yes, that is. Mhm.
And I guess sort of I'm just going to throw this out there. It sort of smacks of a potential compromise here. I'm wondering if there is an ability to, and I think this may have come from the Bahar and staff, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but I'm wondering if there's an ability to utilize a vinyl fence in the rear part of the yard that's not visible from the main area from the front, so as to not interfere with the historical aspects of the community, and then utilize a wood fence in the front, so that there is a maintenance of some aesthetic that the community appreciates and wants to maintain. So I'm throwing that out there as a consideration, and hopefully that gets Ms. Brooks what she's looking for in terms of her safety and security, and not being cost prohibitive, and maintain some aspect of the historical aesthetic for the remainder of the community and her neighbors.
And then I guess my question would be.
I'm sorry,
how
Ms.
far-
Melton. Ms. Melton, you don't have the floor right now.
Oh,
That was a
sorry.
question. That was a question for Ms. Ron and Ms. Brooks.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. We appreciate your suggestion. I think I would defer to Ms. Brooks to see what her opinion is.
So if I got it right, it is, I'm allowed to install a vinyl 6-foot fence in the side and in the back, so it's not visible from the street, so we are not compromising the historical environment. In the front, I'm allowed to have a 4-foot fence of wood. Yes, I accept it.
Mr. Sekawongo, that is consistent with what staff and the Bahar had discussed.
Yeah, that would be considered that would be a good compromise, I believe. And again,
50% open, right?
yes, it would be 50% open,
50% open, yes.
Yeah.
But there's also the consideration, I'm just throwing it out, whether there's a possibility of maybe even considering a wrought iron fence in the front as opposed to wood. I mean, I don't know whether that's something that would be,
I'm sorry, because the constructor is here.
Okay. I hate to interject, but with
No, I'm sorry,
Henry-
Ms. Melton. You don't have
Henry's
the
making
floor.
a.
We cannot, we can.
Yeah, no, Ms. Melton, you're on mute right now. I just need you to just hold for 1 second, okay? Ms. Brooks? Yeah, I guess there was also a suggestion that it be wrought iron. Would that, Henry, is the reason you suggest that is because that's more consistent with the historical nature?
yes, it wasn't brought up, but I think it's more consistent. It wasn't brought up at the Bahar, but it would be more consistent with the neighborhood, and probably even within range in terms of affordability.
Well,
I don't know what is that, sorry.
but can I raise something? When you say wrought iron, I mean, I envision the hard wrought iron that's around that is around Linwood Hall, which is vastly overcost, to cost way too much. But are you talking about the black picket fence that I'm assuming is made of vinyl or something similar to it. It's not actual wrought iron though, right? Is that what you're talking about, Henry?
Yeah, wrought iron. Yeah, I don't have
Not vinyl though. I mean,
No,
It's not raw iron, it's raw iron.
No, but see, wrought iron, there's black fencing that looks like wrought iron, but isn't really wrought iron that I have around my yard, right? I mean, it has the aesthetic of appearing to be wrought iron, but it isn't actually wrought iron fencing. And I think what I was curious.
Yes, and that would be true to the requirements of the Baha'i. It wouldn't be outside of the realm of what would be similar to what's and consistent to what's out there.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
So we're getting, it
I'm
sounds
sorry,
like.
I don't know
Miss-
what is that, so I cannot agree on something that I don't know how it is. Like, I have no idea what is that.
Yeah.
Yeah, share my screen.
So Henry, do you want to,
wait a minute. When I'm trying to explain,
I'm sorry, Miss Melton.
I know you
do
don't.
Yeah, you don't have the floor right now. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Henry. Would you share your screen?
It's made of aluminum, I think, is what it's made of.
Yeah, black aluminum.
Yeah, black aluminum.
No, we have to
So these are
Let's see.
examples.
Ms. Brooks, I think Mr. Sekawanga is going to show you an example of what he's talking about.
These are
Oh,
examples.
Right,
of-
thank
I
thank
go-
you.
No. Can I go back to, no, I prefer wood, sorry, at this point, sorry.
Okay.
If
Um,
it is still an option, I really would prefer wood.
The wood. Now, my only question is, again,
Miss Melton, Miss Melton, Miss Melton, Miss Melton. I am running this meeting, and if you would like to speak, you can raise your hand, and I will recognize you. Okay. Thank you. Now, I'm going to recognize you, and you may go, but let's keep it to the issues at hand. Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead. Unmute yourself. Go ahead.
okay, I only have one last question. In the area where the development is, and there's any houses in front, my only question is, how far back is this wood fence going to be?
That's a great question.
Thank you, because it would change the aesthetics of the historical district in that particular area. It not in Willows, because Lamont is I hate to say it's sectioned off, but you got the old Lamont, then you got the Erland section where Miss Brooks lives at, where I live at. They built differently. Then you have where Cedar Lane, those houses were built in the 1800s. And people
So Miss Melton, the question is, how far back does the fence have
yes,
to be?
because if she
Okay.
puts it at the curb and the pavement, it changes.
I get it. I get
Okay,
it. Mr. Sekawangu, there is a setback requirement on fences in the front yard, correct? Mr. Sekawangu, you're muted.
So this is the property we're talking about right here. So again, they would be permitted to have a 4-foot fence along the property line going back up to where the front yard ends, and then they would end up having 6 feet above from this point going backwards, going back to the rear, probably up to this point. I believe this is where the fence would be running, as opposed to back on Willow. There's a possibility if it's a compromise, the property owner could consider, a 4-foot fence at this location versus this location. But again, that's a prerogative.
But is there a setback from Erland Road that's required? So
outside of the right of way, basically, yes.
So how far in does the right of way go?
It probably would be right in this area, going back.
Correct. Basically, the fence starts after the steps. You can see the steps in the front of the house, exactly where your mouse is. Yes, and then for 40 feet, it has to stay 4 feet high.
Right.
So, yes, and then it can be 6 Yeah, so
Mhm.
I'm okay if this commission allows me the vinyl after 40 feet and the back and the wood in the front.
Can
I
I,
accept the compromise.
all right, can I speak?
Sure, Commissioner Cherico.
Sure. Ms. Brooks, thank you so much for bringing this. I understand the frustration that you must have. So I'd like to say that I make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for exactly what you have indicated. We will do the vinyl in the back and side. We'll do the wood in the front. I appreciate the Bahar and their thoughts on this, but I also understand the importance of the issue. So that would be my motion.
Thank you for that, bringing it to a head. Is there any comment or question on the motion?
My only question is,
I'm
again,
sorry, Ms. Melton. That question was for the board.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So any comments or questions from the board on Commissioner Cherico's motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Thank you very much. Ms.
Thank you,
Melton,
Ms. Brooks.
Ms. Melton, I appreciate your input and your feedback. Ms. Brooks, thank you for your patience during this process.
Right, and hopefully that'll stop. And call the police anytime. They do come. I can testify. They come.
Very good.
Just come.
They
Thank you.
were here Friday night. I caught them while they were breaking the door.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yes,
Okay.
I need a fence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate that. All right, we're going to
Thank
move
you.
on to item number 4. Receipt of the Planning and Zoning monthly reports for March 2025. Are there any comments or questions on that report or those reports for the board? Seeing none, I'll move for acceptance. All in favor say aye.
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 Item number 5, report of the building inspector for March 2025. Comments or questions there? Seeing none, I'll move for acceptance. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Item number 6, report of the code administrator for March 2025. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll move for acceptance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 7, old business. Is there any old business for Building and Zoning? Commissioner Rappaport, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering, and I know some of this is sort of implied in the inspection reports every month, but we've had that apartment inspection policy now in place for a couple of years. And I'd sort of like an update, a more formal update on that. I don't know if it needs to be a public one or that's something that I don't know, but I'm just putting in an interest in bringing an update.
Commissioner Rappaport, is there something in particular that you're looking for from those from that inspection process? Or
I think a sense for how the ordinance is working, if we're getting how many inspections we're getting, what kind of cooperation, all kinds of, all the data
Sure.
that one would expect from an update.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Allison, is that something that we can let's see, Allison.
I'm here. Sorry, my
Oh,
video
there
is
you
not
are.
working. My name isn't either. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But yes, I'll reach out to the code enforcement office and have them provide an update on it. Scott's unfortunately sick today, so he wasn't able to make the meeting, but I'll make sure that he gets that request.
Fair enough. Thank you, Commissioner Rappaport. Anything
And
additional?
I was just going to say, I don't want it to interfere with the ongoing work. But everybody else reports to us. I just don't think we've heard any feedback on how that that ordinance is working out.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Anything additional for old business? Moving on to new business. Any new business for Building and Zoning? Commissioner Cherico.
Sure, I'm not sure if it actually falls under building and zoning. So correct me if we need, but I think it might be under code. There is a growing problem of litter all along the properties on Old York Road, specifically, including I believe Elkins Park Square, or Elkins Square, wherever the Marco Polo used to be, along the underpasses between Cheltenham Hills going up to Church Road. It's just, most of them commercial businesses, some of them empty, and there's nothing on them. But nonetheless, I think we may need to do a better job. And granted, I know it's a lost cause, but I think we need to do a better job of identifying and citing properties along that right of way for not picking up their litter. Because when you drive up there, it just looks terrible. And I received a complaint from one resident recently who proposed a neighborhood cleanup, which I think is a great idea. But I don't think we should have let home property owners, including commercial property owners, off the hook for not doing what they should be doing.
Yeah, good, great point.
And that includes SEPTA, by the way. All along, they're the biggest offenders. And I brought this up before. The biggest offender, it's of course the not so much the Elkins Square, but partially Elkins Square, definitely SEPTA, as well as the empty lot on the corner of Church and Old York and Cheltenham Hills. So,
which has been,
yeah. So I don't know what we need to do, but I would maybe ask that we do a better job of citing SEPTA and those others.
Commissioner Rappaport.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't going to mention that tonight because I know Public Works had done a big piece, but all the state roads are all in need of those kinds of cleanups. You see it on Ashbourne, you see it on, well, I'll just leave it at that. So the citing of the property owners, unfortunately, it's hard for them to clean up because of the traffic issues. So it really becomes also a PennDOT issue. So I'll leave it at that, but it is a problem in lots of places.
Yeah, so all good points, Manager Elliott. Perhaps we can, put this on, code enforcement's agenda for some stepped up enforcement. I don't know if we could cite SEPTA, if we can find, but certainly there are properties that are fallow and that are contributing to blight and I mean, Commissioner Cherico mentioned that one on the corner of Old York and Cheltenham Hills, which is just a complete eyesore. So,
but keep in mind, SEPTA is one of the biggest contributors in our township to.
I don't disagree. I'm not disagreeing at all.
I brought up 6 months ago. I brought up that sidewalk along Church Road by Wall Park, and it was 2018. I think we marked those sidewalks as needing to be replaced, and now we're 7 years later, and SEPTA still hasn't done it.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Jeff.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
agree 100%. Yeah.
I'm just tired of SEPTA and not taking, causing blight in our community and not taking responsibility for it.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Lewis.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to it. The township is getting trashy. And I mean that sincerely. I can't give it, I can't sugarcoat it. It's all the roads: Cheltenham, Eastern Road, Church Road. I have to say this though, whenever I report anything to the township, the response I get is absolutely stellar and quick. Shoppers Lane, ridiculous. And I also have to say that I noticed this weekend, our own property is a mess on Cheltenham Avenue between the vacant property that we own between Bethel Deliverance Church and the mall. That vacant property is a hot mess. So we need to get together, not only site folks, but we need to come up with a plan to clean up the township. Whether that be us, PennDOT, the business owners, all the stakeholders. We need to have a solid plan to attack this problem.
Is that something that we could put onto the EAC to come up with a ways and to, I don't know.
Yes,
Sure.
thank you.
And we could sell that property quickly, so we can not have to worry about it. Okay. Any other all good suggestions. I'm sure Manager Elliott and others are taking notes. So but yeah, I think it's an important issue. Can we take away Ms. Camarota's screen share, please? Okay. Any other new business before I go on to Citizens Forum? Seeing none, I'm going to close new business. Citizens Forum, Ms. Iser, you have your hand raised.
Can you hear me? I think I'm off mute, right?
Yep, we can hear you.
No kidding. First try.
Well done.
When you were talking about the garbage, Abington just the other day, because I follow them too, had a township cleanup day, sort of like what we have on Fridays for big pickup. Could we maybe try something like that? Like this, like our sections, this is cleanup Friday, so that they would go through their blocks and neighborhoods and then put a bag in front of their house.
Great suggestion.
Suggested that. Sorry.
Yeah, great suggestion. I think we put it in the mix. It may require. I think some of the issues that are raised may require more than that, but certainly that is a great suggestion. So thank you for that. Ms. Melton.
Hi. Okay. I'm gonna do 3 minutes. One.
Got it.
I know you stated about the policy and the process, but being on the historical commission, I don't think that part was followed. Number 2, Henry, I'll talk to you later about setbacks. 3, Ann knows, even though I'm in Jeff Ward, I probably bother Ann more than I bother Jeff. But I'm gonna get you, Jeff. And thank you for coming out, but guess what? I really feel sorry for the business people. I know you might think that, finding them and making them accountable for their property, yes, we should all clean up and sweep our front of our places. But some of the problem is not them. SEPTA might, their places, but sometimes it's not them. It's the people that come in who dump, who's so trifling they can't put their trash in the trash can. Still over there in the lot, and there was somebody dumped black trash bags, not inside the dumpster. So when the man came to, and he has to pay for his place, the dumpsters, they pay for that. It's not like they're doing anything free to keep up. They have to pay for every pound that they do. And then some trifling person, I'm going to say it like that, comes because they don't want to put it out in their trash for whatever reason. And they dump not just 1 or 2 bags, they dump a lot. I sat there and I watched the businessman pick up trash in white plastic bags to lift the lid to put it in the dumpster because some trifling person. So, okay. But again, I thank everybody for coming out and doing, and that cleanup day, township day, that sounds good. You let me know. I'll send it Chelsea chats. Because, and I get mad because I got to clean up crap that's in my yard because it blows because of the people that doesn't even live here. That's what bothers me. Okay? They don't even live here. And so I got to live dirty because you want to live dirty? No, sorry. Anybody wants to help me, a friend to something around here? Because I'm really tired. I'm not moving. And I want to live to 100. So I'm not moving. I ain't going nowhere. I think that was, hold on. See, I wrote it down so I won't forget. I think that was all for today.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ms. Melton. Thank you for all your participation.
Oh, and y'all might want to try to incorporate the DEA, the Drugs Enforcement Agency. Because if no, don't laugh. Because if I'm right in what I see, okay, and the block that I moved off of, then maybe they can work with our police force who did a good job. And I know they got the people up there in that community center, but they're coming across. They are.
Thank you.
Across.
Thank you, Ms. Melton.
Oh, and an abandoned car.
Okay. 3 minutes. Time's up. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ms. Camerota.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm not sure where I'm appearing, but if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
And you're appearing on Building and Zoning Committee. How's that?
Yeah, my video probably isn't
Okay.
again. But at any rate, the trash issue has come up time and time again. I'd like to ask if it's possible to get any signage, like we need more signage. I mean, it's I remember in the 80s, we used to have no litter signs around. And in fact, I did bring this up before, that on all of our motor registrations, vehicle cards, it does state that there's a $300 fine. That is placed for littering as a reminder to everyone. And also that April is our Earth Day coming up. It might be mentioned in on the website or in a newsletter of sorts, that it would be helpful if everybody pitched in and tried to do their part. It is pretty outstanding that on Church Road, how much litter has been uncovered with the expansion project. And it's just pretty awful to drive through there. Is there any way we can ask PennDOT to clean up? Are they going to wait, when they're all finished in 2 years? I mean, it's really their job, and it's impossible for us to get in there to clean it up. Would be helpful if we could speak with PennDOT about that. And okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ms. Camerota. Any other citizens forum for this evening? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close citizens forum, and I will move for adjournment at 9:22 p.m. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.